Hi everybody, my name is Kent Blakeney and this is U.S. History for Expats presentation on Civics Now. I'm going to do a couple things today and let me go through the objectives. Today I'm going to show you how students use project-based learning in the classroom to learn and produce great material, and also I'm going to tell you why civics is important in today's world. So let's go ahead and get started. What is a project-based learning activity? So in project-based learning, you start off with some type of entry event, then you have an essential question which you're going to answer later. You think about your essential question, you say, what do I need to know to understand and answer that question? Then you go through, you research how you're going to answer that question by asking need-to-know questions and answering them. Then you create some type of final project and you present. In the next few minutes, that's exactly what I'm going to do with civics education. So if I were teaching this in the classroom, I would do an entry event where I might show different sources showing different types of headlines from different newspapers across the political spectrum dealing with civics education, because it is something that both Republicans and Democrats do agree with. Civics education is super important. At this time, I also ask you, if you want to, you can press pause, go to www.my.uscis.gov and spend 3 or 4 minutes taking a practice test for the U.S. naturalization exam. Let's see how you do out of the 20 questions. All right, so hopefully you did well. And on the next slide, we're going to see, this would be part of the entry event. We're going to see some of the different traits of U.S. citizens. Only 13% know that the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1788. Most people think it was ratified in 1776 when we wrote the Declaration of Independence. 60% didn't know who the U.S. fought in World War II. 57% can't name the number of justices on the Supreme Court. 72% are unsure about which colonies became the 13 colonies. Only 24%, 1 out of 4 people, can name something Ben Franklin did that made him famous. And finally, only 24% can name one reason why we fought the War of Independence. All of this came from U.S. News and World Report, an article they did, and this is something that I would bring into the classroom and tell the students, and I'd ask them, does anybody know? And then we go on from there. So after the entry event, we have to have an essential question. And the essential question is a question that has these 3 parts. How can I, as something, and then what can you do at the end? So I wrote this one for this audience today. How can I, as a U.S. history teacher, highlight the importance of civics education to parents of students living outside the United States? The next step in the process, and I literally did this a few days ago, is I asked myself, what do I need to know to answer that question? Now, as a history teacher with 20 years of experience in the classroom, I had a pretty good idea, but I wrote down these questions as a reflective practice for me to think about what would you, as an audience member, want to know about civics education. So you can press pause right now and see what my questions were. The next step in the process is going through and answering each of these questions. So on the next slide, you'll see I went through, I just created a Google Doc, I put all the questions down, and then I went through and I started getting some statistics and some answers to try to figure out what are the answers to each of these questions. Some of them I knew, but I didn't know the statistics. Other things, I looked at one thing, it led me to another question. This is the discovery process, learning about the topic that you're asking your essential question about. So I did learn quite a bit about civics education and some different organizations that promote civics education. Some of them I already use in U.S. History for Expats, but I did find some that I hadn't used that I might in the future. So this is a great process for me too. The next thing you need to do is think of how are you going to present this to your audience. So in this case, I said, okay, I could write a newsletter post and send it out to close and see if they'll put it in, talking about the importance of civics education. I could put something on my website. I could create a website or a web page itself. I could create a pamphlet. I could make a video for parents showing them all the different aspects of civics education and why it's important, and I could create a list of parent resources. When brainstorming for that and thinking about what you might want, I kind of combine them all together in a sense into a pamphlet. So on the next slide, I took a template that I got from US History for Expats, and this is a template that students use to make a pamphlet, and then I started putting all the pieces together. I had my essential question, I had the answers from each of the need to knows, and I put those together into a pamphlet. You'll notice on the first page of the pamphlet, it's like a trifold, so there are actually 6 parts to it. I put the name, I put the importance of it, and then when you open it up, the first thing would be the top 10 reasons your child should take middle school civics. When you open it up even further, I wrote down all the different parts of Virginia's class on civics, which students would take in 8th grade, and the major standards for that. So you'll see there's like state government, responsibilities, public policy, the court system, etc. I put down some excellent websites that parents might want to go to learn more about civics education or do something with their child. And then on the back, I put my sources as well as a quote that I found and a little bit of information about US History for Expats. So this is the format that your child would use in US History for Expats to learn about any topic. So at the end of each of the 10 units in each class, your child has a project-based learning activity. It's quite a bit more structured than the one I just gave you here. We actually ask them questions and such, but this is what your child would be assessed on at the end. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me, kent@ushistoryforexpats.com, or you can visit our website, www.ushistoryforexpats.com, and try to find any of our courses, US History 1, US History 2, Civics and Economics, High School, US History, and newly created Civics Bootcamp.